Good day and welcome to today's webinar. It's entitled Explore Network Impact on Your App's Performance, and it's brought to you by HP Enterprise and also in the presentation with HP Vivit. And today, your moderator is Petar Puskaric. I'm a software architect with NTT Innovation Institute, Inc. I'm also, through Vivit, one of the performance engineering special interest group leaders, and kind of filling in and doing some hosting duties, and hopefully have a great webinar today. Today's speakers are Guy Rosenthal, who's with NV Product Manager with HP Enterprise. He's the manager for HP Network Virtualization Products, formerly the Shunra side. He's responsible for creating and leading the future product strategy and roadmap, and is the go-to market strategy and market requirements and business cases. He has over 13 years of experience in both managing cutting-edge software engineering teams and products. He's proficient in performance and functional testing, DevOps, and agile practices. The other presenter this morning is Kristina Avranova, and she's product marketing with StormRunner Load and network virtualization, also with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. She's a passionate marketer and currently supporting network virtualization and StormRunner Load. Has a versatile career background, including product and digital marketing, business development, and account management roles in the semiconductor and software industries. Next, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping this morning. Today's live session is intended for all Vivit members, and the recording will be posted in the webinar section of the Vivit website, and it's visible for all current members. Additionally, today's slide deck and webinar recording will be made available to you. We will send you the link via email once they are posted to the Vivit website. And if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to type them in and send them in using the questions pane in the webinar control panel. That's usually found to your right-hand side. And on the next screen, we have a picture of the webinar control panel, and it's that upper right-hand corner of your screen. And to submit that simple question, just make sure the questions pane is expanded, and type in your question and click Send. So let's get started, and I will pass control over to Avranova, and let's have a great presentation.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good evening, everybody, wherever in the world you are located. This is Kristina Avranova. I'm hailing from sunny, not yet sunny California. And I'm excited to have you here. And I'll pass it quickly on to Guy to say hello, good evening, good morning.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning.
So hope everybody is having is going to have a good webinar, and we will look forward to your questions. Quickly, the agenda, we only did the quick introduction. I am going to go ahead and cover the network impact on your app's performance, the business proposition, the reality actually of us, the users. Then Guy's going to take it from there, and he's going to go and tell you what you can do and what you should consider when you're exploring the network effect on your application. Then it's going to be followed by a demo of network virtualization. This is the software emulator tool that captures and discovers network conditions, so then you can test and see what is really the customer that is seeing. And it's going to be followed by the Q&A. So before we get going, I'd like to do a quick poll, and Pilar, can you please quickly read them out to the listeners?
Yes, right now the poll we have set up is a topic on mobile traffic, and whether you think does it never affect your application? Does it slow down your server's responses? Does it affect your user experience? Or do you agree with it that it's both B and C? And for this particular one, there actually is a right answer, but we'll see how you do. So we'll let this come in for a little bit, and it looks like we've got pretty much everyone in now. So we'll give it another 5 seconds here. Let you guys vote. Okay, let's go ahead and close that poll for now. And wow, those are the results there. So interesting there, we've got the majority say, yes, it is both B and C, 53%. And then there's the next level up, which is going to be 34% say it just affects the user's experience. And then down at the bottom end there, 9% it never affects anything, and 3% it slows down the server response. So what do you think about that?
Actually, very interesting. So the reality is that mobile traffic, remote users will always slow down the server response. And when the server response is slowed down, inevitably it's going to affect the user experience. So yes, B and C are correct. And we will go to it and you will see why is that the case. But remote mobile users will always slow down your server. So it is a mobile world. I mean, everybody knows that. We all know that. We live in the Internet of Things. And we've already all seen, similar statistics. This is a 2013 statistic that there have been 6.8 billion phones used in the world. And 3 years later, we are probably looking well over 7 billion. We're talking about controlling our home appliances via the phone, our Nest, for example, the thermostats in the home. We are talking about explosion in traffic, and this is really in a global level in any part of the world. Look at the work productivity, all the tools we are using for collaboration, for connecting, everything that we use in the home, for monitoring home security. It is basically up by 2020, they're estimating to have 30 billion autonomous things connected. And every now and then I look at it and I'm thinking, is it really a buzzword? Are we really going at that speed? And sometimes I don't have to look further than my household. Granted, it's not the Internet of Things in terms of too many appliances that are yet connected via the network, but we definitely live in a connected state of mind. So this is my own little household, which is my husband, who has a work computer and a personal computer, a work phone and a personal phone. Then it's me, and I have a work computer and a personal computer, and luckily enough, only one phone. Then it's my 7th grader, who has a laptop, a phone, of course, and a tablet. Then it's the 5th grader, who also has a laptop, a phone, and a tablet. And then it's the little guy who has only the hand-me-down desktop from his sisters, and luckily at this point, only a tablet. Then, of course, we have the printer and iTunes and Apple TV. So we are streaming it, make easily streaming, from either an iPad or a phone, right? And this is so many people sharing the small home network. Sometimes I am on a call, my husband's on a call, somebody is downloading a video, somebody's uploading a video, somebody's playing with one hand on one game and with the other one chatting with a friend. So inevitably, and sooner or later, somebody gets that sign. Either our phones get dropped or, somebody is getting application loading, right? So what does loading mean? Well, in my household, the rule is the smaller the person, the higher the pitch. When the game is not working or the video is frozen, you hear the screams, right? But in the business world, it is simple statistic. A small 500 millisecond connection delay will result in up to 26% increase in peak frustration and about 8% decrease in user engagement. And these days, we have a lot of expectation. Again, if I understand why I might drop this call, and because there is only so much my little AT&T router and home can handle, the next generation, or when I call it the slide generation, the kids that are used to being available all the time, for them it's more than we can ever expect. But network performance, in essence, affects the user experience. And every 100 milliseconds of latency cost Amazon 1% of their profits. And 79% of mobile users will only retry one app or twice before they delete it or before they take it out. So probably here I have to say, with statistics like this, the bigger the boss, the higher the pitch. So user experience is crucial. We all know that. Even us as users, when we pick up an app or when we try something out, we expect it to be flawless. So again, not that I bore you with statistics, but those are truly the facts. And if you sometimes pause for a second and think, is it really like this? It is truly like this, because if we try the app, if it freezes too much, probably we won't do it again. If you know that the competitor's app, for example, when I give on my kids' education app, well, I'll go through 5, 6 before I see which one works the best and the easiest, loads quickly, and it's smoother transition, and it doesn't have the heavy graphics that it will take forever, the loading sign, right? And of course, if you're doing anything that is for your business purposes, when you have to connect for a call or conduct any type of business, everybody tries to see the one that is going to be the smoothest type of operation, because it is crucial. User experience is crucial. And of course, the different networks are going to have different effect on the application behavior. Those are 4 simple business processes, as you can see on this graph: launching, signing in, viewing balance, and transferring funds. And you can see the effect that there is based on the different mobile network. If it's a Wi-Fi, obviously stronger. You can see how quickly an application will launch. And then look at it, how long it will take to launch on a 3G busy network. Same goes for other common processes, and at some point of time, we just consider those to be functional failure. The application will fail to initialize, and it is very likely that either, in this particular case, app or website will be abandoned. If that's a shopping cart experience, you just leave everything and say goodbye, I'll try the next website, and so forth. So the network affects everyone or everything. Let's quickly talk about the e-commerce websites, right? We all know that they're image heavy. They have to pull content from different internal and external sources. Many times as shoppers, we simply say, okay, I like this, check it, add it to my cart, check out, done. But in reality, on the background, you have quick checking with inventory, quick checking with third-party services, payment processing, shipping, logistics, loyalty programs, or whatever not. So you may have several different processes that are so quickly happening on the background. And then very often, when massive number of users hits the site, such as Black Friday or Cyber Monday here in the US, the websites will have a hard time handling the load. And it is fact that often they may crash because the server has been slowed down by remote users. And in fact, this has happened I think a year ago, at one of the big famous retailers here, electronic retailers here in the US, not naming names. But what has happened is that people were in the store and they were using their mobile phones to check the prices of the online store. So at one point you had people from home shopping and the people from the store logging in from their mobile devices, and the bottom line is that servers, they couldn't handle the load, so of course everything crashed. The site was down for a few good hours, which was easily hundreds of millions of dollars on a Black Friday day. And performance of a web application, basically customers are won or lost in 1 second. I'd say 1 second is too little, but 5, 6 or whatever minutes, if something is not working, that's it personally for me. Maybe not 1 second, but definitely I won't give it much try if things are not working properly. So some network traffic is expected, right? Some is unpredictable. Many e-commerce websites, they expect that Black Friday, Christmas shopping is going to be big. Flower shops, chocolate shops, so for Valentine's, that would be big. Universities, when they have open enrollment, they may expect massive numbers of users to hit their website. So they prepare, they try to scale, they try to take into effect, how are people going to log in, where are they going to log in, how long is that going to be. But sometimes it's just unpredictable. And this is quite true when we're talking about travel. If it's a busy summer travel season, or there had been a snow blizzard or bad weather that has closed the airport, Most of the cases, the first thing you do is you pull out your phone if you have to find yourself a hotel because the flight was canceled, if you had to either try to rebook on the next flight, rent a car so you can get whatever you needed to get or something. At the airport, you're very likely to just pull out your phone and just start searching. And when you have so many people simultaneously using and logging remotely, inevitably the servers will overreact to the online travel agencies. Something similar easily happens when we're talking about the financial market. If there is something that is causing, up and down in stocks, or like I believe it was last summer, it was a network router that failed, which caused a frantic search of news. So people started with their phone to connect to it was the Wall Street Journal, to try to get news why and what has happened on the financial market, and the Wall Street Journal couldn't handle it, and it crashed for a few hours. And if you can argue, okay, fine, so it's just a newspaper, it's just an online media, they don't really sell anything, it doesn't really, okay, it was kind of unpleasant, but think about it, they make their money by displaying ads, and ideally they want to have big traffic coming to their website so they can display more ads so they can make more money, and in reality they actually lost a huge chunk of revenue simply because their server couldn't handle the load that came from the remote users. And the next thing that naturally happens is the sell-off frenzy. Everybody is trying to quickly, if it's a panic mode, to sell off whatever they can sell off. And that, again, will result in overload at the financial institutions. So it is things like this that sometimes you just cannot predict what is it going to be that you would quickly pull out your phone and you can start making the transactions you need to make. Another great example is if we look at IT these days, data centers, front-end and back-end servers, customers, they're users, they're all over the globe. You don't know when and where anybody's going to connect from. And at the chart at the bottom, you can see what are the response times for somebody that is connecting locally in New York versus somebody logging in from London to New York versus somebody that's logging from Tokyo to New York. Easily we're talking here again, when you look at the long, 18.1 delay, this is easily again a functional failure. And imagine you're trying to log into your bank account or with your financials so you can, process some type of a transaction. 20 seconds on something like the stock market is a lot of money. So I want to do a quick poll again. Have you in your, or actually I would leave to Pilar to ask you the question.
Yeah, so in your experience, are you aware of performance incidents due to the network conditions? And we'll leave this poll open for a while. It's a simple yes or no. So we got some results rolling in, and yeah, I seem to be following a trend here. So we'll let this run for, I don't know, another 10, 15 seconds. So we're about 70% of the people voting at the moment. Getting there. Let that rise until at least 75% or so. So hit those buttons. Okay, there we've got about 75% in, and it's staying pretty consistent. So yeah, it looks like 90% are saying yes, they are aware. And then there's a little smidgen of 10 that said no.
Well, good. You either had you've done a very good job of building whether it's a web or a mobile map or whatever product you have, or simply more or less you were unaware of the effect, or you haven't had the chance to test and what you can do to measure the impact of the network. So from now on, I'm going to pass it on to Guy, who will go on the more technical side and explain to you how and what can you do about it.
Thank you, Christina. Can you see my screen right?
Yes.
Excellent. So thank you very much, Christina, for setting the background. on the world we live in, mobile and complex IT challenges, and how the network is attached. Let's move on and dive into the network basics, network challenges, and points that need to be considered. I will give you solutions so each and one of you can solve or mitigate those challenges later on.
All right, so we have another poll here for you guys to jump in on, and it's do you test to see how your app behaves under network conditions? And it's an either you do test or you don't. And we'll let that settle in here for a few moments. Oh, this is a little more evenly balanced so far, so keep it coming in. So we're sitting there, yeah. Another vote or two, we should be ready. All right, there we go. We can cut it at that one. So in this particular poll, it comes in about 50-50. So 53 yes, 47 no. So at least half the group is doing some testing.
Okay, so if you answered yes, good for you. You're doing good. Bear with us, to make sure all of the concepts are known and implemented correctly in your organization. And if you answer no, even better for this webinar purpose, I will shortly brief on why you should include network conditions as part of your testing practices. So let's move on. Just so we all be aligned when talking about network conditions, we are mainly discussing a triplet of variables that have significant impact on your application performance. The best analogy I can use is a water hose. So the length of the water hose actually influences on the time it takes for a water drop to travel from one side to another. This is referred to latency in networks, the time from the source sending a packet, a data packet, to the destination receiving it. The width of the hose impacts on the throughput or capacity of the amount of water that can flow in a certain time. This refers to a bandwidth in networks, maximum throughput of a logical or physical communication path. And lastly, we are talking about packet loss. It is more common in mobile networks. We will get to it later on. It is the percent of data packets that are not reaching the destination, implying that on the need to resend them in some occasions or in some protocols, what we call missed data. And the analogy is obviously water drops that weren't be able to reach the other side of the hose. Out of those three, the most impactful variable in your application performance is probably the latency. As you can see in this table, there is a physical boundary of speed of light versus a physical distance that impacts the latency. In this table, you can see how much time it takes for a data packets to travel between two locations in a vacuum, which is the optimal conditions. What is the fiber time, which is less optimal, and what is the round trip, source to destination and back. The numbers here are a bit misleading, since the calculations are for direct paths, and as we all know, network topologies are much more complicated, so the real latency can be much higher. Later on, we will get into mobile networks where in that case, latency is even worse. In this diagram, illustrates that the latency impacts the traffic much more than the bandwidth itself. Okay, and as you can see, the impact of the bandwidth is relatively lower to none. Add to it the packet loss variable, and the impact is even much more higher. We'll go to another poll right now.
Okay, and this particular poll, which I believe is also our last one, is are dynamic network conditions an important part of your load testing? And you can select one of the following. So you can say no, that testing the worst condition case is enough, or yes, it's the way to imitate realistic scenarios, or yes, they have major influence on TCP and protocol behavior. No, modern servers easily handle mobile and desktop networks. Or finally, B and C both count. So we'll let that settle in for a little bit. It's about 39, 40% of you have voted. Now we're getting there fast. So let this go for another few seconds. All right, about 65%. It looks like that's standardizing out there for now, so we'll cut it at that. So in this case, basically the winner is going to be B and C at 59%, then followed by B, which is yes, it's the way to imitate realistic scenarios, and then dropping down to no, the worst case is enough, and then yes, they have the major influence on TCP protocol behavior, and finally, no, the modern servers handle it just fine. So B and C was the winner on this one.
Okay, yeah, so the right answer is E. And the reason is it is much more realistic to test with dynamic conditions plus dynamic network conditions influencing on the network protocols, mainly TCP, in a different way. Let's continue and hopefully we'll get answers why. So let's talk about mobile networks and why they are so challenging and unique. I think the reason is probably attached to their dynamic nature and how network hops are deployed. As you can see in this illustration, there are many hops between the device and the data center. Each of these hops add a complexity and latency. Adding to it other mobile attributes such as network types, 3G versus 4G or even 2G in most of the world. Different carriers and infrastructures, Verizon versus T-Mobile versus Vodafone, for instance. And a device that is mobile by its nature, so you can travel, enter the elevator, experience changing reception in different day hours, etc. All of those can influence the network quality. The conclusion is that mobile networks implies on high latency, very dynamic and constantly changing conditions. And the question being asked is, okay, why should I care? Why does it matter? Let's talk for a second on a fundamental part of probably any modern web mobile application, the TCP protocol. I'm not going to delve into TCP RFCs and specifications and how exactly this 40 years old bulletproof mechanism works. But what I do want to emphasize is that TCP is an adaptive protocol. It means that its behavior and logic is dynamic and changing a long time. So TCP is constantly considering the network conditions and the sender-receiver capabilities and behavior. That's in order to ensure fair communication, avoid overflows, congestions, and maintain optimal performance for the network. Some of the TCP concepts that can influence on the performance are the three-way handshake, the slow start pattern, and obviously the flow and congestion control mechanisms that are being handled mainly by the window size algorithm. For instance, on the left side, on the left image, you can see how the three-way handshake works. Those three calls travel the whole physical medium, thus exposed to full round trip of latency. On the right side, you can see how the window size mechanism is working over time, increasing the receiver buffer at the receiver side. Okay? those two methods are dynamic and change according to the network conditions at a certain point of time. Due to this nature, dynamics networks impact the TCP behavior differently from static and constant conditions. So disconnections and reconnections, dynamic changes in network quality such as fast and slow receivers, low and high bandwidth and latencies, or variations in the packet loss ratio, for instance, have their own impact on that protocol layer. Eventually, this can have a performance impact that should be tested and taken into consideration. So what is the performance impact? First of all, let's understand the server performance side and what is the logical flow that can lead to failures. We always, or in most cases, have slow users. Either they are mobile users as discussed or remote users that implies on high latencies. Remember that the latency table a few slides back. At the server side, available connection sockets are being occupied and are not being released or freed for a long period. This causing the server to become saturated and unable to get new clients to be served. And we can see the server exhaustion and scalability degradation eventually. So slow users might cause more processing concurrency, thus causing the CPU and memory and thread count to increase. And this can lead or accelerate the server exhaustion. This is the impact on the server side. What is the impact on the single user performance from the single user experience point of view? Unrelated to the server impact, as we said, most of the transaction time is spent on the network. So we must make sure we are avoiding unneeded network calls or at least reducing the network round trips in our applications. So the application is not network optimized, expensive and useless network time is spent over unneeded round trip packet tours. This will cause eventually a bad user experience and bad performance on your application. You saw what does it mean in our modern world and demanding world in Christina's parts. So for instance, in this graph, we can see a real customer application transaction response time before and after a network optimization. You can see a dramatic response time improvements and even a total decrease in the last transaction, the account transaction that is currently became to all zeros. It was discovered by the optimization part that this transaction produced unnecessary network calls that were unneeded completely. So to conclude, what is the business brand impact of those two areas of influence? I can summarize it as a business and brand damage. Either failure in production, functional issues, bad sentiments, negative sales, and so forth. So before moving to the next part, let's recap what we have covered till now. We've discussed network basics, latency, bandwidth, and packet loss. We've discussed network conditions or mobile network conditions that are dynamic and challenging, mainly implies on latency and very spiky conditions. We've discussed dynamic network conditions that do have a unique influence on the underlying protocols such as TCP and eventually on performance. This is an aspect need to be remembered and addressed. And the last one was network conditions do impact both the server and the client user experience and can have a devastating effect on your business. The conclusion is that you should include network dimension as part of your testing cycle for performance and load testing. Let's move on and see how we can address some of the challenges using HPE network virtualization solutions. So the first challenge is obviously the environment difference between production and testing lab. as a good tester, our goal is to mimic as much as we can the production environment. Sometimes we are neglecting those slow users that we just discussed, that we saw impacting on our performance. The solution is to add network emulation as part of your tests, always. And HP network virtualization can literally create any network conditions you would like. Either it is by using a predefined network profiles, enter them manually, or using one of our worldwide sample repository, which we call Global Library, that provides a wide coverage of real-life conditions recorded for many locations. And you can also use HPE network virtualization capturing tools that I will cover in the next slide. The second challenge is to be able to mimic dynamic networks. HPE network virtualization offers two products to do so. The first one is the network capture server, which is a companion product to any load runner and performance center customer. This tool lets you record your real production network conditions from server to the endpoints, assuming they are remote. The output of this tool is a recorded file that can be used in the testing tools such as LoadRunner and PC. The second tool, which is in the screenshots in the right side, is very similar but for mobile. You can download it from the app stores. It's free, Google Play and the Apple Store, and it gives you a similar functionality but from your device anywhere in the world. And the last challenge I want to tackle is related to our end user experience part and the need to optimize the performance of any web mobile application. I mentioned before, or I didn't mention it actually, that 70% of the application performance issues are network related. So how you can do it, how you can optimize your application. Use HPE network virtualization analytics capabilities. NV Analytics can analyze your application, provide very meaningful insights about your application performance, and remember, eventually the goal is to reduce the unneeded network round trips. So we can provide an optimization recommendations and thorough root cause analysis on what to fix and how to fix it. For instance, reducing very big image sizes, smart using of your cache, avoiding send or downloading the same data twice, etc., etc. We provide ranks to your application, and in that manner you can optimize it over time. Before we are going to a short demo, let's conclude. Use network emulation as part of your test to achieve much more realistic results. Strive for realistic network conditions to mimic mobile and dynamic networks using our capturing tools or our global library. And the third tip that I can give you is optimize, optimize, and optimize. Always strive to optimize your application constantly and even add those best practices to be part of your CI or QA automation processes and create new SLAs for it. It's crucial in the world of mobile and web world. I will now move on to a short demo on how NV is embedded in our performance tool, our modern performance tool, which is called the HPE StormRunner Load. I'm not going to demonstrate the influence of NV on the server side, but I do want you to see the flow, how intuitive it is to work with NV in this tool. Also, I would like to show you NV Analytics as part of the client-side breakdown in StormRunner Load feature. This cool feature was introduced very lately in StormRunner. So let's move on to the demo. So this is the main or the home page of StormRunner, in which you can actually manage all of your load testing. It's a SaaS offering. This is the home page. Here you have load tests. You can refer to them as okay. I me to probably logged out for some reason. Wait a second. Okay. Sorry for that.
Security is always a great thing to have.
Yes. So we are good. Okay. So this is the home page. Here we got a load test, which is similar to scenarios, if you're familiar with in LoadRunner and PC. Assets, those are the scripts that you have. We support JMeter, TrueClient, Web Protocol from an SAP, from LoadRunner, and the result tab is for latest runs that we had. If I'm going to diving into some test that is currently running, you can see, sorry, I'll just move it out. Let's go to. So if you're entering one of those tests, you can see exactly how to configure it. Here is the test name, how do you want to deploy your load generators, etc. In this screen, in this tab, you are actually selecting the asset that you want to run, and the ramp up, the time, the duration of it. And this is a new bottom here, the breakdown, which will add you what we call the client-side breakdown insights. I will get into it in a second. Here I chose it. And here in this test, I'm using a monitor to monitor the AUT, the application under tests. This tab is about the distribution. So I can actually choose any AWS or Microsoft Azure location. In this test, I'm using only Virginia region. And as you can see here, this is the part that you can actually set your network conditions or network emulation on this region. In this test, I'm not using a network emulation, but I can change it and provide you a percentage of the distribution of network emulation in this for this test. We are running here 1,000 virtual users, so I can choose 30% in one typical and 70%, for instance, in mobile busy. And as you can see, it is changing the distribution at the lower part of the screen. The client-side breakdown, this is the new capability. You can choose here between NV report that will run as part of your load testing for one single user and will provide you insights about your client application and how exactly it behaves, plus the optimization rules that I described, and I will get to it in a second. And you can also run web page test report. And the last tab is the runs of this test. Here you can see that there is a running test currently, which is running for 1 hour and 50. And this part is the metrics that we are all familiar with from the StormRunner side, which is the running virtual user, throughput, transaction response time, and all of the network, CPU, let me put it this way, are actually from the monitoring side, so you can understand how your application under test behaves and get some metrics from it. So this is a running test, and as you can see, we get a live information. The test itself is running on a very, very naive and simple application under test. I'm not calling it even application. It's a bunch of 3 pages, HTML pages, that you can go and click back and forth on them. not something very complicated, and actually it doesn't demonstrate anything rather than an application that you can test with. And here I got actually two tests that I ran with one with Envy and the other one without Envy. They are not very important or significant metrics or insights to demonstrate here, but what is interesting is that without Envy, because this is a very, very naive application without any processing time, you can see a pretty solid or constant metrics for the application under test sites, which is the CPU is pretty constant, the used memory and the disk utilization is pretty constant. The transaction response time is very low. Okay, it's 1 second or even less. When we go to the test with network virtualization applied, which was the worst conditions available, we can see obviously a huge increase in the transaction response time, and this is expected. And you can see kind of a sinus graph for all other metrics from the server side, which means that the server worked only on the time slots where the slow users reach to him with a request. In a normal application, or let's call it less naive and more realistic application, you will see here a degradation in the CPU comparing to a run without network virtualization. So goes to the network itself and the connection pools as I described, and you can see a very fast acceleration of your server exhaustion. The last part I want to demonstrate here is the client-side breakdown. So this is a new tab for the last version, and as you can see, this actually gives you insights and grades for your applications divided into 3 transactions: search, add to cart, and checkout. Add to cart and checkout did not produce any network, so that's why they are not getting any grade. But if we will go into the search transaction, we can see here the grades, and as I said, those grades are by severity, and you can actually understand by clicking on the specific problem what is the problem, what is the resource that is problematic, and what is the recommendation. If you will click on it, you will get a waterfall that will explain you exactly how much time it took, what was the sequence, etc. We have additional tabs that might be helpful as well, such as understanding errors, if there was some 404 or other HTTP errors. This is the distribution of the resources between types. If it's image types, code types, we have more types, but this is, as I said, very naive application. And that's it, basically. Okay, this is a summary that explain you or give you the breakdown between the client and the connect phase, transmission phase, and the response wait phases. And that's it, basically. I will now pass it back to Christina.
Thank you, Guy, and thank you, everybody. So we have this tool. It's pretty straightforward, but it's probably the best preview of Envy you can get. Basically, you have to go to the following website, hp.com/software/insights. All you have to do is put there your web page URL. And within 5 minutes, you're going to get 20-page plus report, which is going to show you pretty much everything that Guy showed you. What is the score of your website? Where is the delay? Why is it being hung up? And what can you do about it? As you said, for example, you have an image site. If you compress it, it's still going to be a high definition image, but it's going to load so many seconds faster. If you change the cookie side, or if you modified your, basically the recommendations are on a code level. If you change this code of software, this is the optimization you're going to get. So it is the best way to really explore Envy, and it takes literally URL, and in within 5 minutes you're going to get a very comprehensive report. So I encourage everybody to go there. And of course, on the next slide, we invite you to join either our R&D groups. You can interact with users. You can always ask any type of questions that are related to the networking facts or everything. We post there our demos, blogs, and webinars and so forth. So join us, the LinkedIn group, and of course you can always follow us on Twitter. You can see the handle at the bottom, and we also encourage you to go on our website, software/nvhp.com/software/nv, and you can learn more about it. We have good white papers. Some apply to data center relocation, and those are use cases in which network condition testing with the real network condition really matters, because if you are moving from one data center to another, you want to make sure that the applications are still going to run as smooth, and you can go ahead and capture the conditions of the new data center and then apply them to your existing application and see what is and how it's going to be affected. We have mobile use cases, and obviously in this webinar we did spend quite good time talking about the mobile effect and the mobile conditions, but this is simply because we live in a mobile world. You know, this is our everyday, and we have other great resources. And I think without further ado, we are going to open it for questions and answers.
Yes, and currently we do actually have 2 questions in the backlog that we can cover. The first one goes out, and it's basically from Bill, and he's asking, are the conditions from the global library static? In other words, if I choose London, are the conditions always the same, or is the global library updated regularly to capture the London conditions?
So this is a good question. The samples from the global library are static in the manner that they are static and not changing over time when applied on a test. By the manner of freshness of those samples, we are constantly update this repository. So over time, we strive to keep those samples updated and very relevant to the current times.
Okay, great. And then we have one other one that we can ask, and it's from Florin. Are you using SDN, or software-defined networking, as part of the Envy implementation?
No. The answer is no.
And if I recall, it is dynamic, though. So
yes.
We got one more coming in. All right, yeah. How is Envy different from Shunra?
Okay, so actually it's not different. It's not different. Actually, Envy is Shunra was a company that was acquired by HP in April 2014, and HP Envy is actually Shunra.
Great, thank you. We have about 5 minutes left to wrap this up, and I think we have time for one last question. Basically, is it the tool that was demonstrated today that is also used to access the existing production network conditions? Because I am especially interested in the latency determination as we are moving to another data center right now.
Okay, so the tool that I was demonstrate on was Storm Runner Load. It is our performance SaaS offering, which Envy is embedded within, and we are going to extend this integration furthermore in the next versions. So stay tuned. If we are talking about the network capture server, which is the tool for capturing the network, this is a different one, and it wasn't demonstrated today. But again, if it's something that one of the audience is interested in hearing more about it or reading more material about it, we can definitely do it and provide this data.
Great, thank you. And I think we do have time for one more question. It's one of the important ones that we talked about. Maybe we can combine it all here. And it's around the trial version. And is there a trial version of this tool? And if so, how do you get it? And also, is NV available standalone, and what is its pricing?
Yeah, the answer on both of those is yes and yes. We do offer 30-day trial version. Again, go to hp.com/software/nv. You would see the link that goes to download, and then you can choose. If you're an existing Loadrunner and PC customer, obviously you can download this one. The standalone version is also available for tryout. Pricing, that's a different story. Obviously, it's going to depend on different conditions. I suggest that you do download and play with it for 30 days, and then you can always contact your local service and you can see what you're going to receive over there for pricing. But again, you can trial and because indeed you can as a standalone, and we are constantly updating features.
All right, great, thank you. And I think that will be all we have for questions. And if we haven't answered your question today, we will be following up with your questions via email or other response methods that we have. Just want to say thank you on behalf of HPE and Vivit, and just want to make it known too that yes, we have Discover 2016 coming up in Las Vegas, June 7th through 9th, and yeah, you can register now, and you can receive the Vivit member discount by following the link at the bottom of the slide there. It's a great time to get together with fellow engineers and discuss with HP R&D when you find them. They are there. Yeah, and you can basically check out a lot of the tooling you've seen today, and as well as other new things that are coming out very, very shortly.
Yes, I encourage you again, try the Insights report. Again, hp.com/software/insight. This is your best preview of NV. Encourage everybody to go in and put their URL there. And of course, next step is if you like what you see in your report, you can easily go ahead and download the trial.
All right.
And thank you very much to everybody. Hope you enjoyed the webinar. And if you have more questions, shoot them over. We'll answer.
Great. So wrapping up here, thank you for attending today's webinar, and please be sure to complete the short survey after the webinar ends and opt in to receive more information from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. And just a reminder that the webinar recording and the slide deck will be posted to the Vivit website. In the next few days, you will receive an email with those links present, and you should have a link for the questions if there are any left over from the presentation. And with that, I believe that is all we have for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.